Good evening and welcome. My name is Gulamani-Abdulla and I am one of the co-founders of the Canadian Federation for Citizenship. Before I begin my opening remarks, let me at the outset, on behalf of the advisory and executive boards of CFC, express how grateful we are to be hosting you today through this virtual platform. In the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge that we live, work, and play within Treaty 1 territory on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Innu, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dene, and Dakota, and is the birthplace of the Métis Nation and the heart of the Métis Nation homeland. I am speaking to you from the Canadian Museum of Human Rights, which is a landmark built to celebrate human rights and is located in downtown Winnipeg in the province of Manitoba. Earlier, we had a chance to tour the spectacular building, and let me share that it is truly a symbol of hope as we all strive to achieve equal human rights for all citizens and residents in Canada and around the world. This venue is quite fitting as we share with you our theme of embracing diversity to lay the groundwork for shared citizenship. As citizens of Canada, born here or not, we are very much aware of the diversity that exists within Canada. It is one of the defining characteristics of our country. In fact, we deliberately and consciously put effort into making Canada a welcoming place. So naturally, the question to ask is whether a true sense of belonging is born out of that effort. Does every Canadian citizen feel equal to another Canadian citizen? If citizenship is a notable relationship that binds all Canadians, are we holding ourselves to account for one another? And how can we ensure that all citizens and residents of Canada feel embraced, included, and respected as we participate in Canada's progress? Now, how can we forget that we're in the middle of a pandemic? As we all struggle to overcome our common enemy, COVID-19, we have also witnessed the outbreak of intrusion of basic human rights, resulting in inequities and intolerance from among us. As Canadian citizens, as homegrown leaders, we can and must do better by pausing and reflecting upon our common values from time to time so that we may rise victoriously from this outbreak while staying true to our values. The question for each and every one of us is to ask, what does victory mean to us? And our response to that may have been quite different 6 months ago, during this pandemic, and perhaps 6 months after this pandemic. As Canadian citizens, where do we stand today? Can we say that we are in a win-win position? In the midst of the crisis, and as we sift through our own struggles, keeping in mind our diverse populations, how do we, from time to time, readjust our positions to that place of win-win? Because win-win is a frame of mind. It is based on principle. It seeks mutual benefit in all human interactions. This type of thinking not only recognizes diversity as our reality in Canada, but it goes one step further. You see, a win-win attitude puts us in a collaborative way of thinking rather than in a competitive mindset. It is based on the paradigm that victory of one person is not attained at the expense or exclusion of the accomplishments of others. So it is not your way or my way. It is actually a third option. That option is an improved way, a greater and more advanced way to accelerate progress for all. This means all parties emerge victorious. At our inaugural launch in Calgary, Alberta, we had left you with 3 things, and as co-founder of CFC, let me reiterate these. 1, learning should never stop. We can, must, and continue to do better. 2, principles should never be compromised. We must reflect upon our common values. And 3, justice must always prevail. So let us remain vigilant on those gaps that lead to inequality. As I conclude my remarks in the Senator Nancy Ruth boardroom, which is perched at the top of the Canadian Museum of Human Rights and overlooks the city of Winnipeg, let me take a moment to motivate you to embark on this journey that all of us are on. Because we all have a role to play, whether it is in our homes, our schools, our workplaces, or in our communities. Let us indeed build back stronger and better in every way possible, so that each one of us comes out of this pandemic a leader, a homegrown leader. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Erin Dueck, and I am one of the executive members with the Canadian Federation of Citizenship. I am based right here in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and I am speaking to you this evening from the Senator Nancy Ruth boardroom at the Canadian Museum of Human Rights. Some of you may know that it was former Senator Nancy Ruth that said, "We have not built a shared vision of a country that builds on all of our people. Governments make all kinds of human rights commitments to values and tools, such as constitutional equality rights, and the implementation of gender-based analysis, and then ignores them." End quote.
To be here in this building during this crisis, as our leaders in our country look for ways to come together to manage said crisis, is certainly timely and a stark reminder that we must stay vigilant and respect the rights of all human beings. I had the opportunity to teach and live in Thailand a few years ago. Having the experience as an educator, I know that every country, including ours, needs to work to level the playing field when it comes to education. Today in Canada, and especially during this time when there are many students learning remotely, there are still those that do not have access to technology and internet. These students include those living in rural areas, including Indigenous and immigrant students, those who are less fortunate economically, and those in large families that are living in a shared living space. We must ensure inclusive and quality education for all of our citizens and residents, no matter who they are, no matter where they live, and no matter where they're from. We know that this pandemic is not just unique to Canada, but is affecting those around the world. And this is precisely why it is so important, now more than ever, for all leaders, and not just within the government, to work together and identify innovative solutions so that we can overcome this global challenge while respecting human rights for all. In fact, every citizen and resident in Canada has an immense opportunity to set an example for the rest of the world by taking action, whether it's at home, at school, at work, or in your community, to rise during this significant moment in Canada's history. It is now my distinct pleasure to introduce to you our advisory board member, Ms. Keren Taylor-Hughes. Keren has established a successful career driven by her passion for the welfare of children and families. Prior to becoming the CEO of Harvest, she spent 12 years as a social worker and 15 years as a senior management consultant specializing in the healthcare sector. As CEO of Harvest, Keren continues to motivate others towards healthier futures for children and families. Harvest is the fourth largest nonprofit distribution center in Canada, with over 350 food banks and agencies. In addition to leading her crew, she has launched several significant initiatives over the last 3 years, including Breakfast to Go, which is a weekend food program for hungry kids, a training and work experience program to help lift adults out of poverty, and a lean manufacturing process to improve warehouse operations. As a champion of community change, Keren also has a history of serving on not-for-profit boards, including Clinic, Canadian Food for the Hungry, and Trinity Western's University's Alumni Association. She holds degrees in sociology and business administration, as well as a master's degree in leadership. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Keren Taylor-Hughes. Yay.
Hello, I'm Keren Taylor-Hughes, CEO of Harvest, a food distribution center that shares food across Manitoba through an extensive food bank network. Today I'm going to share with you my perspective of shared citizenship. When I think about citizenship, I think about my own journey. At 8 years old, my parents and my two sisters and I immigrated to Canada from England. We arrived in Winnipeg on the coldest day of my life to that point, December 25th. And yet I still saw it as a gift. When I asked my parents why we moved to Canada, for opportunity and a better future for my sisters and I, they said. Growing up in the Taylor family, we were taught the importance of hard work and education. This would open doors. We could achieve anything. And my parents were right. Compared to my relatives back home in the UK, we did have a much better quality of life here. And we understood the desire for a better future is what drives many people to Canada, immigrants, refugees. As I began school in January, I had a natural interest in sports and participated in many activities in school, in faith-based and community settings. Each of these activities was led by community volunteers who created a warm, inviting program where all were welcome. I felt accepted and encouraged, and I wanted to emulate that for those efforts. This became the basis for volunteering in my community. I wanted to follow their leadership example, making my own contribution, and my first role was serving as an assistant coach at my junior high while I was in high school. My reward was discovering that it felt really good to help and encourage others, and this inspired me to do more. As an adult, my understanding of active citizenship grew. I learned that we can all participate in our community, we can influence and shape it. We can work together to make a difference at work or at school, locally, nationally, or globally. Working together to improve the lives of others is what led me to become a social worker, and later an organizational change leader, coaching for growth in a variety of industries and sectors. My passion for helping those in need is what led me to Harvest. The Harvest community is a microcosm of the best community. Tens of thousands of Manitobans from all walks of life come together to ensure no Manitoban goes hungry. In a normal month, we provide food support to over 70,000 Manitobans through our provincial food network of over 350 food banks and agencies, including soup kitchens, daycares, and schools, to name a few. In virtually every corner of the province, Winnipeg, rural, northern, and First Nations communities. The people who come to Harvest for food assistance are incredibly diverse. Hungry kids, hardworking families, adults with chronic illnesses, or seniors on a fixed income. They come from different backgrounds and cultures, different ages, genders, education, income, abilities, and circumstance of life. This diversity is mirrored in our volunteers, who collect, sort, package, and help distribute food to Manitobans in need. They are individuals, students, community groups, and corporations. They are clients, new Canadians, and others who care about their community and feel a responsibility to give back. Last year, we saw over 9,000 volunteers, and they contributed over 190,000 hours. Along with our crew and our financial donors, we collected and distributed over 11 million pounds of food to feed our neighbors in need. Early in the pandemic, Harvest came within a whisper of shutting its doors due to a decrease in food and volunteers to deliver essential food and other services. Then our community stepped up and we received more new cash donations than in any other period in our 35-year history. It became clear that Manitobans saw food as a basic human right. The pandemic taught them that sometimes life happens and through no fault of your own, you could fall on very hard times. Lost jobs and wages put many things in jeopardy: house and home, the ability to cover expenses, provide childcare, and buy food. And as the scope and impact of the pandemic grew, so did the number of Harvest stars. Individuals, businesses, scouts, photographer, t-shirt makers, local shop owners, people from all walks of life came forward to ensure no COVID-affected families were turned away hungry. Their shared action provided a nourishment beyond the food in the Harvest hampers. Our clients received helpings of hope and goodwill that come from knowing they lived in a kinder, more caring community. Shared citizenship in action. You can play a part too. Find something you're passionate about and get involved. When I think about community citizenship, I think about this quote that speaks to a meaningful life: living for one's community and supporting its members in any way you can. Harvest is a place where all are welcome to participate in helping make life better for those less fortunate and for those less fortunate who want to help others. See if your local food bank needs some help. Thank you.
Let me tell you what a delight it is for Ghalib and I to be in Winnipeg, Manitoba, as we all recognize the 150th anniversary of Manitoba joining Canadian Confederation. It was during Canada's sesquicentennial that we established the Canadian Federation for Citizenship. It was in 2017, and so being in Manitoba for its 150th is indeed very special. On behalf of the advisory and executive boards, and as co-founder of the Canadian Federation for Citizenship, it is my hope that as we close this evening's virtual leadership symposium, that we have emboldened you to take action wherever you are across this great nation of ours. When we initially planned for this event, we hoped to bring our audience into this remarkable building, the Canadian Museum of Human Rights, right here in Winnipeg. What happened instead was that we opened up this virtual symposium to not only the citizens and residents in Winnipeg, but to a Canada-wide audience who have stepped forward and joined us in sparking hope and optimism across our country as defenders of human rights. Yes, these are unprecedented times, and now more than ever, we must stand together to protect the basic human rights of all Canadian citizens and residents of Canada. This is the time to prioritize active, responsible, and inclusive citizenship where no one is left behind. We cannot afford to leave anyone behind. The pandemic is a stark reminder of what is outside of our control. The virus is outside of our control. But we all know that this crisis has also revealed that which is in our control. We have the sole power over our own individual actions. How we act and treat others during this pandemic matters. As Canadians, let us rise from this crisis as well-informed and fair homegrown leaders. Whether it is in our own homes, whether it's in our schools, in our neighborhoods, in our workplaces, and in our communities. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us